So I have a 1991 C4 Corvette here that I've had long-term issues with these door switches, and I need to replace both of them. And I'm kind of annoyed, I guess, because you look at the price of these, they're $30 to $40 a piece, and they're replicas. GM doesn't even make them anymore, and even when they did, they didn't seem to work that well, and the replica ones seemed to perform even worse. So I looked at, if I could just, pay the money for two switches, it's not that big a deal, but I don't like doing it multiple times, particularly for something that seems fundamentally flawed. So I looked for a substitute switch, and what I found is this switch, which is very similar to the original design. It has the same exact electrical connection, the same type of plunger, but the base is really, instead of made for a composite SMC door with the two flanges and the backing plate, this one's made for sheet metal. That's much thinner sheet metal compared to the SMC and backing plate, and these little tabs then just, it slides in and it catches, and then to pull it out you'd have to pry it up, potentially breaking the switch, but that's probably okay if you're moving it anyways. But it has this self-adjusting collar here where this collar actually moves up and down on this ribbed cylinder here, so you can put it in and then you shut the door and it self-adjusts to where it needs to be. The biggest drawback to doing this is it's not made for the sheet metal door, so you got to do a little bit of modification to get it out. So part numbers here, overall seems to work good. I can't verify long-term durability, but the good thing is these are still in production. They're only about $4, $5 a piece. I think it's $4.86 or something from Rock Auto. They're also available Amazon Prime, available at about any auto parts store. You can still get them in mass production. So looks like if you have some trouble with this one, no big deal. You switch it, take it out. So I'm going to show how to install it. I've got a couple different ideas of adapting this for the composite door versus the metal door, and we'll see how it goes. So to remove your old switch, there's a trick. There's a metal plate inside that will fall down, so you don't necessarily want to lose that. First, you remove the top screw, and then you replace it with a longer screw. What that will allow you to do is to slide the switch out on the longer screw while still holding the plate inside. So now I've installed the longer screw and I've removed the smaller screw. That should allow me to be able to pull the switch out, and the longer screw still securely has the metal backing plate held. Now to get this out, there's a connector on the back that you kind of got to pry off. I'm sorry, let me back up. Before you pull it out completely though, you want to put one of the smaller screws back in and re-engage the plate. Then you can remove the top screw. So once I can get that, I'm screwing the plate back on. Now I've got it secured. Now I can remove the top screw. The switch will come out, except I'll have to get a small screwdriver and pry the connection tab towards the switch body. Alright, I'm not sure I can do this without putting the phone down, but I'll give it a try. So, grab the tab. I can't do it, I'm going to put the phone down. Alright, you can see the small tab inside. I had to get on the outside of that tab, pry it in, just to get it past the opening. Now I've got the connector of the switch off the connector. There's not a lot of wiring harness left. Don't let it fall back into the door. Be very careful, and then hook up your new switch. So that's with the new switch installed. The hole size is pretty good. Like I said, the one problem though you're going to face installing is these tabs here to that base flange is designed for sheet metal. You've got a composite door that's thicker with a backing plate. I'm going to keep the backing plate in place. I'm going to put the screws back in and just tighten them down so you won't have the same flange, but it will still be there, and if you ever wanted to go back to the other switch, you could still use it. So I'm going to remove the long screw now that I've got the short one in place, tighten those down. I'm going to trim these tabs a little bit. So that the problem with trimming them is as it goes down back, it's angled and you don't have as much overlap. What I'm going to do though is trim them, and they seem to engage pretty well, but I'm also going to just put some glue around it. Consider it hot glue, silicone adhesive. I think either one of those will work fine. It's still flexible enough that it will let you pull it out if you ever need to replace it without too much work. But it seems to hold it fine. Now long term, I can't verify that, I haven't done it, but there's probably some other clever ideas between trimming the tabs and using some adhesive. The one I actually liked probably the most was to basically convert the door to what the metal door interface would be, where maybe you drill this hole a tiny bit larger, you screw down on the outside a backing plate, pretty much identical to the one inside, but you can make one out of a washer or something on the outside, and then basically it would be designed to the right thickness of these tabs, and then you could easily just, in the future, if you ever need to change your switch, you just push it in, pull your new one out. It's designed for the same interface that a metal door would have. I personally like that the best, but I think the adhesive one will work fine, and I'm going to give this a try. Alright, so I've trimmed these tabs back some, kind of just guessed at the depth I needed. You probably could measure it and get it much more precise, and maybe even rely on the tabs by themselves. But again, there's not a whole lot of overlap between the hole and the outer part of it, so it may be a little bit loose, but that's why I'm going to put some hot glue or some silicone adhesive around this and then push it in. And then you see these ribs here, this cylinder will go back when you shut the door, and you want to do a little carefully because it takes a lot of force that goes through, and you don't want to use too much though and break it. But as you shut the door, it will hit the striker on the car body, and it will self-adjust the depth of this switch relative to the base, and you should be set then, and we'll see how it works. Alright, as you can see, I applied some black silicone adhesive to the switch. Yeah, there's going to be some squeeze out, but it's black, and you wipe it off before it dries. So I'll go ahead and get it lined up. Okay, I'm going to wipe it off, and then I'm going to shut the door. And when I shut the door, it will contact the striker here, which just installed a new push fastener on it, and this will push in, and then it will set the cylinder depth of this piece here relative to the base along these little ribs. So I wiped some of it off. Like I said, I used black silicone adhesive. I used black just because it's what I had, and car body is black anyway, so it's not that big a deal, and I'll do some more cleanup on it after I shut the door. But you probably want to use clear if you got some other vehicle. But take this, and then I'm going to shut the door. Heard a loud pop, but now you can see it's set to a pretty nice depth, and actually the tabs are holding it very tight, and then once the silicone dries, it should secure it and fill in, and maybe give it some undercut to have a mechanical lock into the door, but yet still enough where you can get it out in the future. So there's a picture of the new door installed, and interior lights are functioning, or excuse me, the new switch installed, and the interior lights are functioning properly. Here's the old switch. Appearance-wise, it's certainly got some differences, but you know, I left the screws in there and the backing plate, so kind of makes it look the same way. And if you're really concerned with looks, you could even make a backing plate, like I said, or find one of the internal backing plates, put it on the outside. It would even closer resemble this switch. But you know, for under $5 a switch, I'm gonna give this a try.